Tip 1. Weather year-round. We're just giving you the highs and lows for each month during the year, and how many rain days you should expect. Hopefully this will help you decide on which month you want to travel. That is, if you have a choice. Tip 2. When to visit. We're going to break down the different seasons to visit Porto and the benefits of each. Let's start with the high season. You might have to deal with higher prices and larger crowds, but the weather should be incredible with very little rain. It can get hot sometimes, but generally Porto has a nice breeze that runs through it. And if slightly cooler weather and a little rain doesn't bother you, and you can save a little money as well, and it never really gets extremely cold in Porto, so traveling during the low season is well worth it. Moving into the shoulder season. This is where you can enjoy some very comfortable weather. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, and you could avoid some of the crowds. And going in March through May, you can enjoy the spring flowers. And visiting in the fall, you could take advantage of the grape harvest season in the Douro Valley. Best month? June. Yes, I might be a little biased here, but I really enjoy traveling in June, especially in the beginning of the month. What's great about traveling in June, especially in the beginning, many countries aren't on vacation yet, so you can enjoy a little bit less crowds than you would during the summer. The weather is beautiful, and they have some wonderful festivals. Tip 3. You might be asking yourself, how many days do I need in Porto? That's a good question. I'd say the absolute minimum is 2 to 3 days. If you can get 3 nights in, that would be perfect. Of course, you could spend a lot more time in Porto. There are a lot of great things to do and it's a beautiful city. But if you're traveling around to different countries in Europe or cities within Portugal, 2 to 3 days is your sweet spot and the absolute minimum. Tip 4. Getting around. Let's first talk about getting to and from the airport. We're going to go through the top 4 methods for this. The metro, which is inexpensive and practical and pretty easy. The bus, I'd personally want to take the metro over the bus if possible. I really don't want to deal with any traffic. Next, we have a taxi or a private transfer. These options are great if you have a lot of luggage or a family, or happen to be traveling in the middle of the night. This method will cost you a little more money, but in some cases, it's worth it. And with the private transfer, you have the benefit of scheduling the time beforehand. And leaving from the airport, they have signs everywhere. And it seems like they're always pushing you towards the metro, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And if you decide to take the metro from the airport, you'll be taking the Violet Line, Line E. And if you don't have a metro card already, you'll pick one up here at the Adante machine. Remember, 1 card per person. There are a couple of different options for metro cards. In a moment, we will discuss which card is right for you. Let's get back to our trip from the airport. You'll take the escalator up to the platform and wait for your train. On the train, they have well-labeled metro maps so you won't get lost. And when going to the airport, just use these directions in reverse. And in case you need to transfer, everything's well organized and labeled in the metro. We had to transfer to the yellow line, the D, to get to our Airbnb near the river. Now let's take a look at the metro map so you get a better idea of how the whole system works. Now let's talk about how you get around in the city. You have the metro and bus, which are both economical and easy. You could take a rideshare or a taxi, which is going to be a little more money, but the prices are very reasonable. You could always take the hop-on, hop-off bus, and the tram is a classic way to travel around Porto, as well as many tour options on the river, in the city, and throughout the wine country. And there's walking, which we always seem to do. Now let's talk Adante card versus Porto card. First, we'll dive into the Adante card. The Adante card is a metro card that can be refilled, or you can get a 24 or 72-hour unlimited card if that works for you. And here we have an example of buying an Adante card at the airport to get to the city center. This example is for 1 ride. This type of Adante card can be recharged. Remember, 1 card per person. Now let's move on to the Porto card. which can get you into some museums for free and discounts on others, as well as discounts on tours, activities, and events. If you add transportation to the card, you get free public transportation for the allotted time. Where to buy the cards. I put a short list here of some of the places where you can buy either card. There are quite a few more places, and in fact, you can buy the Porto card online. I'll add a link below. So which card is right for you? Well, that depends. It depends on what you want to see, what you want to do, and how you like to get around. We crunched the numbers, and the Adante card worked out better for us. For the attractions we wanted to see and how we got around, we ended up walking a lot. But that's fine, because Porto is a very walkable city. So basically just crunch the numbers and figure out which card works out best for you. Tip 5. What to wear. Porto has many cobblestone streets and hills and stairs, albeit colorful ones. And if you want to reach new heights, you're going to have to climb. As we mentioned before, Porto is a very walkable city, so take advantage of it. Dress for comfort and try to wear some comfortable non-slip shoes. In the spring and fall, wear layers. It can get warm during the day and cool at night. In the winter, make sure you're prepared for some rain. And in the summer, some days it can get quite hot. Tip 6. The language. Of course, they speak Portuguese in Porto, just like the rest of Portugal. Over a quarter of the population in Porto are proficient in English. And in the school system, it is now required for all students to take English classes. But I feel it's advantageous when traveling to learn a little bit of the local language just to get by. So with the help of Lily, we're going to learn a little bit of Portuguese. Yes.
Sim. Sim.
No.
Não. Não.
Please.
Por favor. Por favor.
Thanks.
Obrigado. Obrigada.
You're welcome.
De nada. De nada.
Sorry.
Desculpe. Desculpe.
Hello.
Olá. Olá.
Goodbye.
Tchau. Adeus. Tchau. Adeus.
Good morning.
Bom dia. Bom dia.
Good afternoon.
Boa tarde. Boa tarde.
Good night.
Boa noite. Boa noite.
Welcome.
Bem-vindo. Bem-vinda.
Tip 7. Is Porto budget friendly? My short answer is absolutely yes. Now this is all relative. It's definitely budget friendly when compared to most other Western European cities. It's about 105 euros a day per person for room, food, drink, and transportation. Remember, this is only an average. You could end up spending less than half this amount if you want to stay in a hostel, walk everywhere, and keep your food and drink budget down to a minimum. Then again, if you prefer the 5-star treatment, you could spend a lot more than this. Basically, it comes down to your budget and how you like to vacation. Tip 8. Sights to see. Porto's city center is designated as a World Heritage Site. Just by walking through the streets of Porto, you'll see so many interesting and diverse sights. The intriguing designs of the azulejos tiles throughout the city, beautiful churches, interesting monuments, and incredible architecture. And here is a very short list of sights to see in Porto. There are many more sights to see than on this list, and everybody's list is going to be slightly different depending on their interests. Some sites are free and some will cost you. I'll add links below if you want to buy tickets. Tip number 9. Walk the Dom Luís Bridge. A focal point to the city of Porto, and probably the most famous bridge over the Douro River. An absolute must is a walk over the Douro Bridge while in Porto. You'll have incredible views of the city from there. Just look out for the trains. They do cross in the center of the bridge. And if the design of this bridge bears some resemblance to the Eiffel Tower, it's not a coincidence, as one of the engineers on the Eiffel Tower was also one of the engineers on this bridge. Tip 10. The Douro River. The Douro River is a wonderful centerpiece to the city of Porto. And while in Porto, you might want to take advantage of the many cruises and tours on the Douro River. They have some short cruises, as well as the famous Six Bridges cruise. And they have many, many tours into the Douro Wine Valley, ranging in time, features, and price. And you could even charter your own boat if you want to spend the money. And you'll see many people walking along the river, enjoying the view, sightseeing, shopping, listening to the street musicians, grabbing a drink or two. And maybe you want to sit at an outdoor cafe with your friends and family, have some wine, and discuss, what are we going to do next? Or better yet, what are we going to eat? That brings us to tip 11, the food. If you've never had Portuguese food in Portugal before, and you weren't sure if you're going to like it or what to expect, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. We are partial towards seafood and fish, so we tried many different dishes. Our favorites were the sardines and the bacalhau. I'm going to give you recommendations for 2 restaurants. The first is a little pricey for Porto, and you'll most likely have to make a reservation, but the food is incredible. The second one is this one. It has a very local feel, and if you decide to sit outside, you're sitting on a slight hill, which I think adds to the charm, but the food is delicious and the portions are huge. I'll put a link below to both of these. And let's not forget the dessert. You have to try the pastel de nata. So you sit down to a lovely meal in Porto. The waiter brings over some bread, olives, maybe some cheese, and you and your friends are like, wow, this is a great restaurant. But wait, this is not free. They will charge you. It's not going to be much, and if you don't want it, it's not rude to send it back. Mind you, Porto's not the only city in the world that does this. Tip 12. Wine, wine, and more wine. If you've never had port wine, or think it's too sweet, or have a bad impression of it, try it again. In Porto, there are many different varieties. I'm sure you'll find one to your liking. Plus, it's got more alcohol than regular wine. Where to find some port in Porto? Well, the name of the city pretty much gives it away. You could find it almost anywhere in Porto, and there are plenty of places in the city to do a tasting. You could also do a wine cruise on the Douro River, and for the true wine enthusiasts, you could head up to the Douro region and tour the wineries. Tip 13. The nightlife. Okay, there are many places in Porto to go at night, to spend time with your family or friends, maybe party a little bit, have a drink or 3, but we're going to focus on this one main area. Well, basically these 2 streets. They're lined with cafes, restaurants, and bars, each with their own vibe and music. The streets are alive as people are sitting outside, walking from bar to bar, enjoying the beautiful Porto night. And suddenly, if you have an overwhelming urge to go dancing, there's a few places you can do that as well. Tip 14. How should I pay? Most places in Porto accept MasterCard and Visa, although I hold my American Express card in high esteem. I really couldn't find any place in Porto that would accept it. And always have some euros on hand. It's a great idea to carry cash, just in case. And you should always carry a credit card with no foreign transaction fees. If you don't have one and you like to travel, you should get one. And there are credit cards with no foreign transaction fees and no annual fee, so you really have no excuse. And if possible, get a debit card that reimburses you for any ATM fees. Now this is a little bit more difficult to find, but there are a few of them. Check with your bank and check online. And if you have to take out money with your debit card, try to use an ATM at a bank if possible. And when taking out money at an ATM or paying with your credit card at a bar, restaurant, or store, on the display, it'll ask you if you want to pay in local currency or convert to your own country's currency. Always pay in local currency and always decline the conversion. If you accept the conversion, they will generally charge you exorbitant fees. Tip 15. Tip or not to tip. In Porto, like many other cities in Europe, tipping is not common, but there are some guidelines that most people follow. I listed a few here. Some final thoughts. If you've never been to Porto, it's a place you should definitely add to your travel list. What's great about Portugal, it's fairly easy to get around if you want to see multiple places in one trip. Maybe you want to go to Lisbon for a few days, spend a day in Sintra and see the magical castles. Don't forget to watch my video on Sintra. Go to the beaches at Cascais, and of course, spend a few days in Porto. For more insights, tips, and info into all your travel moves, stay tuned and subscribe to our channel.